PREETI कर देना.
Good evening
and very warm welcome to all for our Future Ready Leadership series organized by Break Glass Ceiling Leadership. In short, BGCL. BGCL is engaged in empowering women who are interested to follow their passion and reach on top in any field, particularly to boardrooms and leadership positions. BGCL is in many activities: coaching, mentoring, counseling, independent directors program, organizing seminars, and webinars on women-oriented topics. Our today topic is knowing about future fuel and energy scenarios. And our moderator today is CS Preeti Grover. She is a law graduate and a fellow member of ICSI. She is immediate past chairperson of Noida chapter of ICSI. She has over 25 years of experience in public sector, private sector, and in practice. She is committed for the empowerment of women and to educate and spread knowledge for sexual harassment against women at workplace. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on BGCL website. And this session will be followed by question and answer. And I'll request everybody to put all your questions in chat box. Over to Preeti ma'am.
Thank you so much, Manju ma'am. Also, a lot of thanks to BGCL. I'm happy to be part of this series and, learn myself a lot. So welcome all to the Break Glass Ceiling Future Leadership Series. I welcome our eminent panelists today, Ms. Lakshmi and Ms. Suruchi Kotaki. So as Manju ma'am already said, the main aim of Break Glass Ceiling Leadership is to work towards a gender-inclusive world and help women in their journey to become leaders. So under this new initiative of Future Leadership Series, we'll be taking up 4 interesting topics. The first one that we're taking today, future fuels. Then we also take up future currencies, cryptocurrencies, fintech, blockchain. In the third series, we'll be taking artificial intelligence and IoT, metaverse. And the fourth one will be on digital and social media marketing. So we hope you'll be joining us in all the 4 webinars. Now, coming to the point of leadership. So why should leaders know about future scenario for oil and gas, biofuels, hydrogen, electric vehicles? So everything that is being discussed these days, climatic changes. By incorporating future thinking into their strategy formation process, leaders help in transformation of their organizations. Think of an explorer who dreamed his ship across the seas long before it actually sailed. Now, this explorer imagined and prepared in anticipation of his future dream. So same way, organizational leaders imagine and prepare for the future of their organizations. So it's all about exploring alternative futures, gathering insights relevant to your organization, and shaping the present day organizational decisions and strategies to thrive in alternative futures. And that is what BGCL is here to, prepare our future leaders. So India unveiled its green hydrogen policy on 17th Feb 2022. It was aimed at boosting the domestic production of green hydrogen and making India an export hub for the clean fuel. The policy offers a range of incentives to investors, and it is designed to aid India's efforts to meet its climate targets while also reducing its dependence on fossil fuels. So our eminent faculties are here to help us know all the more about this topic and share their experience and insights with us. At this stage, I think I'll introduce our 2 panelists today. It's an honor for me to read the profile of Miss Lakshmi Venkatesh. She is Vice President and General Manager of Global Engineering Center, Kent PLC, Mumbai. She's a graduate of Chemical Engineering from ICT, Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai. Has a career spanning around 38 years, grown from L&T to head of Petrofac. She's been awarded Women Executive of the Year in Oil and Gas Industry in 2019 by the Federation of Indian Petroleum Industry. Awarded the Excellence Values Energy Award in 2012. We welcome you, ma'am. Before we go ahead, I'll also introduce our second panelist, Ms. Suruchi Kotaki. She's a senior associate at BTG Legal in the energy and infrastructure practice of the firm, with her experience split between law firm and in-house role. She read law at the Government Law College, Mumbai, and also holds an LM degree in business law from University of Mumbai. She started her career as the assistant legal manager and deputy country compliance officer at Clariant Chemicals and handled all their legal and compliance matters. She was also the legal counsel at Austro Energy. She advises clients on diverse regulatory and commercial issues involving the power sector with focus on renewables, including negotiation and drafting EPC contracts and operational agreements, providing general corporate advisory support. She's also handled high-stake regulatory and litigation matters and represented multinational clients in international arbitrations. Suruchi loves to volunteer for social causes, and in her free time playing lawn tennis, loves to travel and listen to music. So we welcome our panelists, and we're all set to learn more from them. So we go deep down into the first question. I think I'll first put it to Lakshmi ma'am. She's also the more experienced one. Ma'am, being a practicing leader from the industry, could you give us an overview of various terms, concepts, and technologically driven segments of the energy industry, which you feel every business leader should be aware of? Lakshmi ma'am?
Thank you.
Request you, yes, to take over, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Preeti, for that introduction and, a very warm welcome. I am not sure about the background of the participants. So I thought that it will be good if I can give you an overview of the terminologies that are used, because when any new technology is introduced, it comes with its own jargon. And, I've got a small presentation made. So if I can just share my screen.
Yes.
Is this, can you see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So before I start with the presentation, I'd like to introduce my organization, Kent. Kent is an energy services firm, and we provide the full asset lifecycle service to the energy industry. And our purpose is, you can read it on the screen, courageously tackling the greatest challenge of our time, to bring the world the energy it needs in the most responsible way ever imagined. So if this is what we are, we have about 12,000 employees and 24 global offices. We are in conventional energy, in low carbon and renewable energies, and in process and chemical projects as well. We have a footprint all over the world, projects executed worldwide, but our four main engineering organizations are in India, the US, UAE, and the UK. So here I would look at the various terms that we have. Okay, now if you see, the use of energy is very, very strongly related to every aspect of development, whether it is wealth, nutrition, infrastructure, even life expectancy. Everything can be correlated with the consumption of energy per capita. And therefore, until recently, energy consumption was tracked as a measure of the country's development. And India's ambition was that we will secure electricity supply to all its population, and in that way, lift millions out of poverty. At the same time, the source of energy was concentrated in a few pockets in the world, and we had to pay a high price for it. And several countries depended on these few for their energy needs. So historically in India, you see that we started exploring energy security. And this led to our discoveries of gas in the Krishna Godavari basin. We discovered oil in Rajasthan. But the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, natural gas, they release large quantities of carbon dioxide. And associated with it, because of the booming world population, there was a large-scale deforestation as well, which could have absorbed some of the carbon dioxide that we released. So these gases, specifically carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrogen oxides are termed as greenhouse gases. Why? Because they trap the sunlight, they do not allow the heat of the sun to dissipate, and that leads to global warming. And therefore, you have seen in the last 10 years, we have got very, very erratic weathers, storms, forest fires, unseasonal floods, tornadoes, and all that. So this led to a concept of net zero. What it means is we become carbon neutral. That means we do not add to the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So we have to employ mechanisms that would offset the carbon which is emitted by absorbing an equivalent amount of carbon from the atmosphere. And this will ensure that the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere does not rise to cause disastrous impacts like, an increase in the levels of the sea due to the melting of the ice caps. How much this temperature should be limited to is a matter of debate. But the aim is to limit this increase to about 1.5 degrees, which we hope to achieve by 2050 as the net zero. So with that background, what we see is that the energy industry is in a transition, because now the measurement has changed to how much energy we are consuming to how we are producing that energy. So the intent is to decarbonize the energy industry. And this is a major change. It's a tall order, because since the time of the Industrial Revolution, which is what, 19th century, we have been using fossil fuels. So we cannot shut down our refineries and our power plants overnight. And therefore, this has to be a phased approach that we will be looking at. So when we look at decarbonizing the energy sector, the first thing that we are looking at is the energy efficiency. So you would have seen when you buy an appliance, there is a 4-star or a 5-star rating. So what it means is the higher the number of stars, the more energy efficient it is. So another thing that is we see, in our day-to-day lives is, the old bulbs, the incandescent bulbs are being replaced by LEDs. Now, LEDs are 75% more efficient in producing light. So in India itself, the LED market, it grew by almost 130 times, okay, from 2013 onwards. And, you know, the government subsidized the LED bulb cost. Why? Because they knew they could save energy by it. And also, in addition, you have, you know, minimizing the heating or the cooling requirements of buildings by use of suitable building materials. So all these are energy efficiency. The next point is behavioral change. What does that mean? That means when you go out of the room, you switch off the lights. So sometimes technology helps us, you know, you've got these movement sensors. So if they don't see any movement, they will stop the lighting. So this is in large buildings. Otherwise, you see buildings all lighted up at night, nobody in the office. So these are the behavioral changes. Another thing is setting the thermostats. You know, why when you have AC, people set the thermostat at 16 degrees and then wear a sweater. You know, you might as well set it at 25 degrees. And similarly, you know, in the cold countries, the heating that is needed. So these two, energy efficiency, behavioral change, we are looking at the demand side. Okay. Now we look at the supply side and what we can do to decarbonize it. So the first aspect is carbon capture and storage. Sometimes it's called as carbon capture, utilization and storage. That is CCS or CCUS. So what does that mean? This means that the carbon is captured from the gases which are produced in the industrial processes. It could be a coal or a natural gas power plant. It could be a cement plant or a steel plant. You capture this carbon dioxide. Now, we've got several mechanisms which are well proven. You've got, you know, chemical solvents like amines, diethanolamine, methyl diethanolamine, several physical solvents are there which will absorb the carbon dioxide, and when they are heated, they will give back out the carbon dioxide. So you also have membranes, you know, which can selectively take in the carbon dioxide. So once you've separated the carbon dioxide, you transport it either via pipelines or by carriers, and then you have to store it. Now these storages are deep underground. So it could be rock formations, depleted oil and gas reservoirs, or saline aquifers, which are like 1 kilometer below the earth. Okay, so this is called carbon capture and storage. Now, if you can use some of this carbon dioxide, so you can have carbon capture, utilization and storage. So sometimes they call it as CCUS. But the utilization of this carbon dioxide, because it's in such large volume, so utilization is limited. So sometimes we used for what we call as enhanced oil recovery. So when the pressure of the oil well goes down, you can, put carbon dioxide inside, pump carbon dioxide inside and increase the pressure of the well so that the oil comes up the reservoir. Or you see, you know, in other manufacturing units also, this carbon dioxide can be used. But as I said, the usage is limited, and therefore, most often what you have to do is store it in deep underground caverns. So you can also see some other terminologies like BECCS, which is bioenergy carbon capture and storage. That is, if I'm burning a biomass, then that is, or a biofuel, that is called as BECCS. And you also have something called as a DAC, which is direct air capture. Now, when you're removing carbon dioxide from a chimney, it is more concentrated. But if you have to remove it from the air which is around us, the carbon dioxide concentration is very low. So the cost of doing this direct air capture is very, very expensive. So what is the use of this carbon capture technology? It is to extend the life cycle of a fossil fuel based infrastructure. So if I have a fossil fuel plant, as we said, we cannot just say tomorrow onwards, I'm going to stop using all oil. But I want to reduce carbon into the atmosphere. Then what we can do is we still run our facility, which is fossil fuel based, but we put in carbon capture units as a method to reduce the carbon dioxide, which we are letting into the atmosphere. The next, what we see is the use of renewables. Now, what is a renewable resource? A renewable resource is something that we can use again and again and again. It does not run out because it is naturally replaced. And this is also called sometimes as clean energy because it does not add to the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now, the examples is, I'm sure that all of you all know it, is the very old example that we had was hydroelectric energy. You have these huge dams in India, the Bhakra Nangal Dam, which have been producing energy for a very long time. Just after our independence, we started these dams. But they also have their flip side, in that they displace a lot of people from their homes. We have seen a lot of protests. Other renewable energies which are coming into the forefront are solar, wind, and biomass as a energy source. So I will take each of them separately. So solar, I'm sure you would have seen these panels on rooftops. Okay, they are made of silicon. These are called photovoltaic cells, and they directly convert sunlight into electricity. Now, what you see on the other side is what we call as solar concentrators, and these are solar power plants. Okay, unlike this, so they are used for much larger capacities, and these solar collectors, they concentrate the sun's rays at one point and they achieve very high temperatures, and that is used to heat a fluid. That fluid in turn converts water into steam and superheated steam. That superheated steam runs turbines like in a conventional power plant, and it will convert mechanical energy into electricity. The next, of course, you see is wind turbines. So these turbines are massive, they are like your skyscrapers. And as you go, you would have seen many of them located on hillsides or places that are windy. So the wind energy turns the turbine's blades, and that feeds the electric generator and produces electricity. The offshore wind tends to be more, wind speed tends to be more and more steady as well than on land. And therefore, it's a more reliable source of energy. Also, land acquisition becomes a problem when you have onshore. So, offshore, we see several wind farms outside the country. But in India, in spite of having, a coastal area which is more than 7,000, some close to 8,000 kilometers long coastline, we do not yet have offshore wind farms. And the reason is they are much more expensive to build and to maintain as well. The next we see is biomass. So what is biomass? It is the organic material which it comes from plants or crops like sugarcane, molasses, waste products. So this is called as a renewable fuel. But you must understand that if I burn biomass, I still produce carbon dioxide. Okay, but it is not seen as it's seen as a net zero fuel. Why? Because they say that the carbon dioxide it has got is from the atmosphere. And that was very recently. Okay, so the same carbon dioxide which it got from the atmosphere for photosynthesis, the same carbon dioxide it is releasing to the atmosphere when it is burned. So there is no net increase in the atmospheric carbon. Therefore, it is still classified as a carbon neutral as compared to fossil fuels, because fossil fuels are also biomass, but they were made millions of years ago. So now, as Preeti mentioned, these biomass is converted to ethanol and it is blended with petrol and it is used in vehicles. So currently we have about 10% blending of ethanol. Recently, we have India has decided to increase this blend ratio to about 20%. And however, it is possible to have even like 85% alcohol as fuel. So this is as far as biomass is concerned. The next what we have in decarbonizing is the hydrogen and the hydrogen based fuels. Now, any chemists or chemical engineers in the group, you will know that hydrogen is a colorless gas. Okay, it is lighter than air, but hydrogen in this scenario, in this energy scenario, it is classified into different colors, and that is based on how that hydrogen is manufactured. So first you have gray hydrogen, and that is most of the hydrogen that is produced. It is generally produced by steam reforming of natural gas or gasification of coal. And in this process, the waste carbon dioxide is just released into the atmosphere. So just to give you an idea, for every ton of hydrogen that you extract, you produce 10 tons of carbon dioxide. Okay, so that is a ratio. Now, if the hydrogen, if the carbon dioxide that you produce, you send it to a carbon capture and storage unit. Okay, that means that carbon dioxide is not let into the atmosphere. Then the hydrogen which is generated is called as blue hydrogen. Okay, so you are still using the same fossil fuel, but the carbon dioxide is captured. So it becomes what we call as blue hydrogen. Another method of manufacturing hydrogen is by electrolysis of water. So if you produce hydrogen by electrolysis of water means splitting water, which is H2O, into hydrogen and oxygen, and it requires a lot of energy, and that energy is also from a renewable source. Then the hydrogen that you produce is called as green hydrogen. Okay, so these are the three basic colors of hydrogen, you can say. Hydrogen produced is still colorless, but this is the way we are classifying. In addition, you have several other colors that they come out with, like if you are using nuclear energy for powering the electrolyzers, then it's called as pink hydrogen, so on and so forth. But they're not very, very important for our classification. Another way the hydrogen can be used is in a fuel cell. Okay, what the fuel cell does is it uses the chemical energy of hydrogen to produce electricity. So if hydrogen is the fuel, then the only byproduct that you produce is electricity, water, and heat. Okay, so recently I just put this news item in. Our Union Minister Nitin Gadkari, he unveiled a Toyota Mirai, which works on fuel cell. So it's called FCEV, Fuel Cell Electric Vehicle. So, a lot of car manufacturers are now moving towards electric vehicles. Now, what happens is this hydrogen is a gas. So it's always very difficult to transport a gas. You have to put a lot of pressure, compress the volume, and then transport. So one of the ways is to use what we call as a hydrogen-based fuel, which is in a liquid form. It's easier to transport a liquid than to transport a gas. So you have ammonia. Ammonia is a combination of nitrogen and hydrogen. So you produce ammonia by what we call as green ammonia, and then transport that to wherever you want to use it. And at the place where you want to use, you dissociate that ammonia and form nitrogen, which is harmless, so you can send it to the atmosphere, and hydrogen, which you use as fuel. So this is called as a hydrogen-based fuel. Okay. The last point that I will come to, which is part of decarbonizing the energy sector, is electrification. So you will see that more and more industries are being electrified. You know, you are seeing electric cars, increased electrification of buildings. You know, in cold areas, earlier they used to have fuel gas or natural gas to heat their buildings. Now they are going for electricity. So when you produce electricity from renewable resources, you have big issues. Why? Because, you know, the power plants traditionally cater to demand side variation. What do you mean by demand side variation? Between morning and night, there is a difference in the power that is consumed. Between summer and winter, there is a difference in the power that is consumed. So you see that if the West expects a very cold winter, then they will say, oh, crude oil requirement will increase because everybody will need to heat up their homes and the price of crude oil will go up. Okay, so similarly, you know, in India, you can say, you know, the AC requirements will go up in the daytime. You know? So there is a variation both which is seasonal. There is a variation which is also daily between day and night. Now, the problem with renewables, especially solar or wind, is that it is not continuous. Solar is there only during the day. At night, you have zero. Okay, so then now the power systems, in addition to managing the demand side variation, they also have to manage the supply side variation. And this is a big change for the power plants. So they have to come out with different mechanisms for storing that energy when it is available, so that it can be used when it is not available. And there are a few systems which are being used. You know, one of the systems which I think, you know, I read somewhere that even Adani is looking at it, is called as pumped hydro storage. So what you do is you have two reservoirs, one at a low level and one at a high level. So when power is available, you pump the water from the low level to the high level. Okay, using a pump, you have pumped it to the high level. And when power is not there, this energy is available at a high elevation, and that is used. When it comes down, it acts like, you know, your hydroelectric energy. Okay, it turns the turbine and it generates power. So this is called as a pumped hydro storage, which can be used to store energy when it is available and to give it back when it is not available. Same way, you have compressed air energy storage. So instead of water, you're using compressed air. You compress the air when the energy is available, store it in large caverns at pressures like 100 bar, really high pressures, and then you take it out, release it to the atmosphere. So it runs turbines and it generates electricity. Then you also have, of course, battery storage. That is, you know, you use batteries to store energy when it is available. So you have different like lithium ion batteries, zinc hybrid batteries, and so on and so forth. So I think this gives us an overview of several developments and so many new technologies. And I hope, like when somebody says, do you know what is CCS or they start talking about CAES, you are able to say, oh, that is carbon capture and this is compressed air energy storage. So with that, I hand it back to you, Preeti.
Actually, ma'am, आपने इतने अच्छे से सारे terms cover किए हैं. I think it's fabulous. I don't think we should have any confusion now when we hear about net zero, decarbonization, solar, electric vehicles, a lot of points cleared. So we got an overview. So I'll just come to Suruchi now. If you now, Suruchi, can you give us an overview of the Indian government's policies on surrounding hydrogen? What are the incentives and the efforts taken by the Indian government in hydrogen sphere?
Thank you so much, Preeti.
Yeah.
Firstly, I would like to thank everyone for making me part of this webinar. It's my complete privilege to share the panel with Lakshmi ma'am. And I hope to throw some light today on the background and policies surrounding green hydrogen in India. Manju, if you may please go to the next slide. Yeah. So I'll break my question into two parts. I'll give you a brief background first, and then I will touch upon the Indian policies that surround green hydrogen in India. So coming to the background, as everybody is aware, there has been a rapid growth in industrialization, urbanization, infrastructure, and population, which has led to huge rise in the release of greenhouse gases. Now, this has further led to an alarming global warming situation. Everyone is aware that it's a big threat to the entire civilized world. In fact, recently, the UN Secretary General also said that we are sleepwalking to our climate catastrophe as our coal emissions have surged over the years. So also, if you see, add to it the Russia-Ukraine war, it has also made it very clear that we need to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels and look for more cleaner sources of energy. We cannot be so dependent upon one nation or upon one fuel, which is going to be an alarming level of dependency. So all these climatic, geopolitical, and economic considerations have actually resulted in various steps being taken at the international as well as on the national front. Manju, next slide, please. The prominent ones actually has been taken by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. They have implemented many measures through Kyoto Protocol in 1997, then the Paris Agreement in 2015, and also the recently concluded COP26 in 2021 at Glasgow. So all these are international treaties which are aimed at stabilizing greenhouse gas concentration in a way that enables sustainable development. Now, I saw that there was a question on Paris Agreement. Well, just to summarize, Paris Agreement is actually an international treaty which aims to reduce global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius and preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Plus, they have also provided for NDCs or nationally determined contributions where each nation's have pledged to take certain actions to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. In India, there are many such goals which have been set under the NDC, and one is that we need to reduce 40%, we need to generate 40% of electricity through renewable resources. So all this Kyoto Protocol, then your Paris Agreement, or there the participating countries, considering their stage of development, have committed to become carbon neutral between 2050 to 2070. While China has committed to 2050, India has set a net zero target by 2070. So all such ambitious targets, and countries, particularly developing nations like India, while they curtail the emissions of greenhouse gases, they also need to look and cannot ignore their developmental needs. For this, world is always looking for cleaner sources of energy, and hydrogen seems to be an answer to this. Manju, next slide, please. So there is this huge excitement which is going on hydrogen, because as you're aware, in the past there were ethanol, then there was methanol, biodiesel, CNG, traditional renewable resources like solar plants and wind farms, battery storage, electric vehicles. There was all these were in the past, but currently the most excitement and momentum is actually gathering around hydrogen, because of green hydrogen, especially due to its non-polluting nature. And few decades back, in fact, though natural gas had substituted diesel, coal, and other fossil fuel, while being considered as the most cleanest energy resources. However, as everybody is aware, natural gas may not be able to meet targets of such sharp reduction and discharge to limit global warming. So here, green hydrogen is again, which is a carbon-free and abundant in supply, seems to be a good substitute of natural gas, and world is very hopeful to address the issue of global warming. So just to capture the advantages that the green hydrogen has, first, it is a clean source of energy with absolutely no adverse environmental impact. During operations, the byproducts are simply water and heat. Hence, they have very low or zero emissions of carbon dioxide. Secondly, they're very abundant in supply. Hydrogen is in fact the most abundant element in the universe. And that too, it's a renewable source of energy, which is perfect for our future zero carbon needs. Then thirdly, they're more efficient. In fact, in vehicles, it is claimed that hydrogen fuel cells use 40 to 60% of the fuel energy, while also offering a 50% reduction in fuel consumption. Fourthly, hydrogen fuel cells do not produce noise pollutions like other sources of renewable energy, such as wind power. And also they have lesser parts, moving parts. So basically, fuel cells basically work like batteries, except the fact that they don't need recharging like other battery technologies like EV. Instead, they will just work flawlessly if you produce heat and electricity, as long as proper fuel supply is assured. Then lastly, unlike biofuel or hydropower, hydrogens do not require large areas of land to produce. Then on the next slide, I will come to the second question, basically the Indian policies which are surrounding green hydrogen. The next slide, please. So first, Indian policy, actually, first, the mention about green hydrogen was done in the Union Budget of 2021, where it was mentioned about the proposed National Hydrogen Mission. Then in May 2021, MNRE came up with the draft Hydrogen Energy Mission document. This document provided the vision, mission, strategy, etc. related to green hydrogen. There are a few more drafts in circulation that time. Subsequently, on the occasion of 75th Independence Day in 15th August 2021, the Honorable Prime Minister announced the launch of National Hydrogen Mission with the underlying objective of making India a green hydrogen hub. This mission aims to facilitate production of 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. Next slide, please. Then there were several notifications, as you can see in this screen, which were made by the Ministry of Road, Transport and Highway, where they amended the Central Motor Vehicles Rule. So in all these amendments, what they recognized was they first recognized the usage of hydrogen as an automotive fuel in the country. They also provided for certain technical specification for hydrogen fuel vehicles and for blending of hydrogen with CNG. Also, these notifications provided for certain safety concerns and norms to be followed in such hydrogen-enriched CNG vehicles. The next slide, please. Now, the most important policy document that currently is making the noise is the Green Hydrogen Policy, which was launched last month on Feb 17, 2022. I'll run you through a few of the points of this Green Hydrogen Policy. First, the green hydrogen has been defined. It has been defined as a hydrogen produced by way of electrolysis of water using renewable energy, including renewable energy which has been banked and those produced from biomass. Now, by providing such definition, the policy indirectly promotes renewable energy because the basic ingredient in making green hydrogen is a renewable energy. So this will help to achieve the twin purposes of getting clean energy. Secondly, there has been waiver of interstate transmission charges for a period of 25 years to green hydrogen producers for all projects which are commissioned before June 30, 2025. Now, what this means is that green hydrogen manufacturers will be able to set up a power plant in Maharashtra to supply renewable energy to a plant in Karnataka, and they would not be required to pay any interstate transmission charges. This is likely to make it more economical for green hydrogen manufacturers. Then developers have been given the flexibility to manufacture green hydrogen by using renewable energy source from any renewable project. So it is not necessary that it needs to be co-located with the hydrogen plant or owned by the developer. It can be even by a third party or even from power exchanges. Fourthly, energy banking has been permitted for 30 days for renewable energy used in green hydrogen manufacturing. And the charges for banking will be fixed by State Regulatory Electricity Commission. Now, energy banking, for those who are not aware, has been very beautifully explained by the Honorable Aptel in one of its judgment. Basically, energy banking can be understood by comparing with a savings bank account in a financial bank. You deposit, for example, you deposit some money in a bank in which you can withdraw and you earn interest. Now, the bank in turn gives loans to other customers at a higher rate of interest. Here, both the bank as well as the account holder gains in this process. Now, when it comes to electricity banking, as you know, electricity cannot be stored and it has to be consumed immediately when it is produced. There may be instances when the entire power which is generated is not required by a user. In such cases, the generator banks it with the DISCOM, who supplies it to the consumer at applicable tariff. Now, for returning the banked energy that it had stored, the DISCOM will have to procure additional electricity from other sources. Unlike the banks which pay interest to saving banks account holder, here the DISCOM earns interest on this banked energy. So basically, this is what energy banking means. Then on the fifth point, with respect to land for setting up green hydrogen plants, the policy is making promising changes. First, it proposes allotment of land in renewable energy parks to green hydrogen manufacturers. Secondly, Government of India also proposes to set up specific manufacturing zones for such green hydrogen projects. Thirdly, green hydrogen project manufacturers will be allowed to set up bunkers near ports for export of green ammonia. Next slide, please. Sixth is the renewable purchase obligation. Now, what the renewable energy which is consumed for the purpose of green hydrogen production will be counted towards renewable purchase obligation, in short, RPO of the consuming entity. And anything beyond RPO compliance will count towards the DISCOM's RPO obligation. So in short, RPO obligation is nothing but bulk purchasers like DISCOMs, open access users and consumers and captive users are required to buy a certain portion of electricity through renewable energy sources out of the total consumption of electricity. Now, by including hydrogen within the ambit of RPO, it will surely give a boost to the hydrogen industry. Seventh, the DISCOM may procure and supply renewable energy to green hydrogen manufacturers at a nominal rate with small margin charges. The only charges that the DISCOM can levy is the procurement and wheeling charges. This is again going to encourage manufacturers to approach DISCOM for supply of renewable energy, and ultimately it will also help DISCOM's financial by addition of another customer. Then on the investor-friendly process which has been proposed, it has been proposed that MNRE is going to establish a single portal for all requisite statutory clearances for storage, distribution, for manufacture of green hydrogen, and they will give the approval within 30 days from the date of application. Secondly, the open access approval will be given within 15 days. And it's also mentioned that the priority will be given for connectivity at generation end and green hydrogen manufacturing end. This will definitely make the entire process easy and also will make it investor friendly. Lastly, the MNRE may also aggregate demands from different sectors and have consolidated bids for procurement of green hydrogen in order to achieve competitive prices through any of the designated implementing agencies. So all these efforts and policies, it makes it very clear that the government of India is taking various measures to facilitate the transition from fossil fuel to green hydrogen. The notification of this green hydrogen policy last month is a major step in this endeavor. And we are hopeful that it is going to come to a stage where we'll have clean fuel and will reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you, Suruchi, for covering it so well, and from the history to the current situation in February and the latest policies by the government. So I again go over to Lakshmi ma'am. So ma'am, energy sector is constantly constantly changing with environmental and technology impact, as you said before. Can you give us an assessment where we can see the energy industry, say in 2025, 2030, or maybe 25 saal baad, 2050 mein, what can we expect?
A forecast is always a forecast. Okay?
Yes.
So we only say what we think, but it may happen, it may not happen. And it depends, and for an industry like energy, it depends on so many factors, the geopolitics, the legislation, the technology advances, as well as the massive transition costs that are involved in this exercise. So what I will do is go to a very reliable source and take it, whatever has been said there, we just use that. So it may not happen in the time period that they have said, but this is something that will happen. Okay, so if they expect it to happen in 2030, maybe it will happen in 2030 or 2040, but it is going to happen if we are going towards a net zero. So this is a report by McKinsey on how we achieve a net zero by 2050 and what we have to do to achieve that. So first, if you look at it, it says very soon, no new coal or oil and gas facilities, no mine extensions. That has to happen now. Okay. But I mean, as Suruchi said, a lot of developing countries still depend on fossil fuels. So maybe it is, and even I think our Prime Minister Modi, he said that we will not agree to phasing out coal power. We will only agree to phase down the coal power, because we have, we have our development agendas for poverty eradication, and we need the, and of course, I mean, there is a legacy, like who made it, made this earth with so much carbon dioxide? It was the industrialized nations that emitted the carbon dioxide. And now we cannot be penalized for something that we did not contribute. Now, what they say is by 2025, no new sale of fossil fuel boilers. So here, if you see that the four different colors are the four industries: electricity, the industry, transport, and buildings, where the major chunk is by the bottom three. Buildings is a small amount. So by 2030, what they think is that electric cars will form 30% of all sales. You will have 150 metric tons of low carbon or green hydrogen, 850 gigawatt of electrolyzers, about 1,000 gigawatts of solar and wind additions. by 2035, no new car sales of internal combustion engines. That means no manufacturer is going to manufacture petrol or diesel vehicles. But the existing vehicles will already be there. Electric vehicles will also enter the heavy trucks area. So far, they have been limited to the light motor vehicles. And most appliances and cooling systems will be the best in class, means energy efficiencies will be very high. By 2040, they are looking at 50% of fuels used in aviation will also be from sustainable fuels. And all the 90% of the existing capacity in heavy industries reaches the end of their investment cycle. These are mainly steel and cement industries. Sorry. So phase out, so in electricity, you will get 100% net zero electricity. That means, all the fossil fuel based power generation has stopped. So by 2050, what they say is almost 70% of the electricity globally will be from solar and wind, and more than 90% of the heavy industry will be low emission. Now, these are a lot of words. So what does it really mean for us? Okay, so impact, if you see, you will see that currently about 76% of our electricity comes from fossil fuels and 24% from renewable fuels. Now that is just going to reverse in 2050. So 85% of the electricity is going to be from renewables and only 15% is going to be from non-renewables. What about vehicles? Vehicles, you see, these are the IC vehicles, that is internal combustion engine. They are going to drop drastically by 2050. No new IC vehicles. Everything is going to be battery vehicles. So imagine the chaos that it is bringing into the industry. Similarly, in cement, you see that low emissions, that is biomass kilns or the existing ones with carbon capture are going to be used. Another big change that is going to come is the need for minerals is going to go up drastically. Because now your electrification has expanded, the copper requirement will go up tremendously. All your fuel cells will need metals like lithium. Okay, so the demand for such metals will go up substantially compared to what we have in the current scenario. So the next one which I have, which I am not sure whether I will have to share, because I think Suruchi has covered a lot of it as to what the thrust for India is, reducing carbon emissions and all that. All I want to convey here is the amount of money that will be needed to tackle this, to reduce the carbon dioxide emission. What we believe is we will still fall short of 1.4 trillion USD. I mean, trillion USDs. Okay, that is, we still fall short in spite of spending about 10 trillion in order to achieve net zero. And we expect that this will be in the form of concessional finance from the developed economies. So if you have, I've just taken a lot of news clips, So you see almost everybody is there in this green energy. You've got Larsen & Toubro, you've got IOCL, they're all looking at either green hydrogen or batteries. You've got Reliance Industries, you've got Adani, plus you've got all the car manufacturers, all the two-wheeler manufacturers, all going in and, into this arena. So what would you see if you are in the research sector? What would you see? You would, there are several technology developments that are under development and several that are already in the market, but they still need to be demonstrated on a large scale. So these are some of the technologies that you will be seeing. I already talked of a few of these, like direct air capture. You may have now all the ships use fuel oil for to power them. Now you may need ammonia powered ships because you have this green ammonia which is coming in. So a lot of autonomous trucks. You have carbon capture from cement. So these are the technologies which are under development. You've got technologies which are already there in the market. So a big change in the technologies that are emerging, and a lot of research avenues. You will see a lot of startups as well in these areas. Okay, what about us who are doing jobs? Which industries where will you see growth of jobs? So from today to 2030, what they say is the growth will be in electricity and bioenergy. Loss of jobs will be in oil and gas and coal for sure. But there are more jobs that will be available per se. So it's very similar to the situation, when computers, internet came in, everybody thought, oh, everything will be automated, so we will lose our jobs. So, but actually what it has given rise to so many more jobs. So it's going to be a similar criteria. Many of the oil and gas personnel, because I personally come from there, we will see that we need to be upskilling ourselves to the new technologies, because the basic factors are the same. Okay, carbon capture uses a lot of technologies that we already know. Hydrogen manufacture, if you're building a plant, the requirements are going to be similar. Okay, so we already have the basis, but we only need to upskill ourselves with the technologies so that we can find ourselves suitable for these new industries. So I would like to keep this session short and end with this quote, which I thought was so beautiful. This is a quote by Albert Einstein, and it says, "Energy is everything, and that's all there is to it." Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. But how responsibly we do it will decide the fate of our planet for the future generations to come. So, Preeti, back to you.
Thank you so much. And this is marvelous, actually, coming from Einstein himself. I think this is something to always remember.
Yes.
Everything, and that's all there is to it.
So beautiful. I mean, I just love this quote.
Yes. Thank you so much. In fact, we're getting for your previous presentation also very detailed presentation. Suruchi, Lakshmi ma'am has already put that agenda that environment will have a say in whatever we go ahead. So, and also as professionals, as the job requirements. So, what do you think should be what should be we aware of as professionals, as business owners, or as citizens? What are the things that we should be aware of going ahead in future?
Thank you, Preeti. Firstly, ma'am, that was a beautiful quote, and I'm so happy that you mentioned that, and it's really I'm hearing it after a long time, and I'm happy that it's still relevant, and people are still sticking to it, and I'm very happy that you mentioned about that. Now, coming to the question on the initiatives and future, what we need to be ready. I want to throw some, interesting statistics. India, despite being a huge population, is actually not the largest emitter of carbon dioxide. China is by far the world's largest emitter of carbon dioxide. And you'd be surprised to know that it emits more than 1/4 of global emission, almost nearly 10 billion tons per year. And China is then followed by USA, which emits 18%, followed by Europe with 17%. So unless you have some fixed and really concrete commitments from these nations, the world will not come to any close to meeting its global targets. So India, despite not being in the top 3 list, is still making huge progress and initiatives in meeting its climate goal. And like I had mentioned before, the notified green hydrogen policy itself provides for various incentives and measures. Other than those, the future, the media reports which are in circulation, they have also mentioned that government is coming up with more and more incentives and measures. Like, for example, the last year, the power minister had mentioned that purchase of green hydrogen will be now made compulsory for certain sectors, like an RPO obligation. This itself will increase the demand of hydrogen and will capture the attentions of investors to come and invest here. Then there's also news about production-linked incentives in electrolyzers. Now, those of you who don't know production-linked incentive schemes, these are basically an initiative by the government of India to incentivize domestic manufacturing. And they want to, as per media reports, it is said that there may be PLI schemes in electrolyzer component, which is actually the technology which breaks, water and hydrogen to produce, oxygen and hydrogen to produce hydrogen. So here, that technology is quite costly. And so if PLI schemes are introduced in this sector, it's going to lower the cost and will help, in reducing the cost of producing hydrogen. In this regard, ma'am had already mentioned about Adani Group's, initiatives. They are planning to, start with and produce world's cheapest hydrogen, green hydrogen. And if that is possible, it's going to be a huge boost to the green hydrogen industry, because cost is a very important element in this green hydrogen manufacturing. Then there's also plans of Government of India to actually scale up the production and availability of green hydrogen by setting an export target. Also, the MNRE, which is the nodal ministry, has been supporting a broad-based research and development program, and it's trying to seek and address challenges relating to green hydrogen. For example, its safety, then storage, and cost-related aspect as well. Also, with respect to laws side, there is also an amendment which has been proposed in Oil Field Regulation and Development Act of 1948. There it seeks to amend the definition of mineral oil and include hydrogen within its ambit. Now, if this is passed, it's going to allow Indian government to formulate new rules regarding exploration and establishment of hydrogen projects. Also, there has been already 2 hydrogen refueling stations already been established in Faridabad and Gurgaon. This is again another step which is taken by the government of India. And as ma'am had showed a photo, this was recently there is that hydrogen-based advanced fuel cell electric vehicle, which has been inaugurated. So that pilot project has already been inaugurated, and this will again be a huge shift from the fossil fuel. So all these, if it's implemented, if it comes into the force and also tackles the ground realities, it's going to be a huge boost to the industry, and we'll be prepared to, come forward, and investors will be more willing to invest in India for such clean source of energy.
Thank you, Suruchi. So, although I think, we are in BGCL, we encourage women to take up leadership roles, but I would like to ask Lakshmi ma'am. She's been a successful leader in an industry, which is kind of dominated by males. So what do you think, any insights, what you would like to share for other women leaders in such industries, and how did you navigate it so successfully?
See, I can say what worked for me.
Yes.
May work for you, may not work for you. Okay, so one of course is, being abreast of technology. So you never know when that opportunity will come, and if you are ready for it, you get onto that train. Another aspect that I found very useful is look for opportunities that have the management attention. This is needed to gain some visibility. Okay, so you have to try and get yourself associated with projects. It could be something like, maybe it's a new area where your organization is looking to be expanding. For example, in oil and gas, I could say that maybe we were doing onshore. Now we are looking at offshore. Okay, so it could be a new technology, it could be a new region. Now, whenever it's something new, all the management is going to be looking at it. Okay, so if you are part of it, then you are likely to be noticed. Okay, another is if you are in a service company, if the client requests for your presence, then that is also taken in a very positive manner, and it brings you to the visibility of the top management. So these are some of the strategies that I have used. Okay, because unfortunately for us, what happens is when you are in that middle management level, it's also the time when you have children. Okay, so it becomes very difficult to sort of make up for those years when, for example, site visits, you cannot go on site visits. So I always tell young engineers, please go and get that done when you're young. Okay, because you need some site visit to get a grip on projects. Try to get that into the kitty before you have children, because after that, the next 4 to 5 years will be very, very difficult for you to come out. So I believe each woman has some strengths, and they need to know where they are strong and capitalize on that. Also very important is to network, like, okay, you give talks outside, you make yourself known both inside the organization as well. Things have changed a lot, so there has been a lot of onus now on organizations to demonstrate diversity. Okay, they have diversity targets to fulfill, so it makes it a little difficult to ignore women. Otherwise, women have been consistently ignored for promotions or anything like that. So when I graduated in 1983, long ago, okay, so there were very few companies that were willing to hire women. I struggled to get my first job. But some years ago, I had a headhunter who was searching. And I told him, see, this job is not in Mumbai. I am in Mumbai. So I'm not interested in going for an interview where I'm not going to be taking up that job. But he kept on, he was desperate. Then he told me, madam, the client has mandated that they need to have at least one woman in the shortlist. And I'm struggling to get one. So please, if you're not interested, you please recommend someone. So we have come a long way, from where, people did not want to take women to them mandating that I need at least one woman in the, interview. So I believe that now, full and equal participation of women in leadership is not an option. And it is necessary for us if we have to achieve this, this transformation. Okay, so this sustainability is not only in the energy industry. This sustainability is needed, at all levels and at all spheres of the society. So I hope that answers your question.
I'll take that same question to Suruchi. Your inputs on this in this energy industry.
Well, I would, of course, I would agree with what ma'am has mentioned. There are these disadvantages, but I'd also would like to also, point out one positive thing. So basically, in my law firm, BTG Legal, we have more women, in fact. And in Delhi office, it's surprising that, I'm the only woman, and I have never felt, in the way, like, overall, the lady versus gentleman ratio is more. But in Delhi office, I'm the only one because we've recently been set up. And I have never felt even once also that, that I'm a different gender, or, I've been discriminated. In fact, the partner who I report to, Mr. Parveen Arora, who Preeti also knows, he is an excellent person, and he also lets me do whatever I would, and always encourages everybody. And there's never this gender aspect which has come into, but I know for a fact that it is prevalent also. I cannot deny the fact that it has been there in the past, but in a good way, this is not there in my current organization. And there are many, now many women are also coming up in the forefront, and, they are taking the challenges. And I always feel that women can multitask and, can have do much more than, we are superior in that case. But having gentlemen like, like I said, my boss also, and my colleagues, everyone, they are also very supportive, and that's very much needed. And recently, in fact, in my LinkedIn, in Women's Day, International Women's Day, the law firm actually, recognized all the women in our law firm. And it was a very nice gesture. And I had also posted that on my LinkedIn. But when I was thanking my, my colleagues, my women colleagues, I also mentioned that it is also possible because, we have such wonderful gentlemen who are supporting us, who are, letting us grow and, do whatever I can. And I'm also a mother of two-year-old son, but I have never felt that, that, okay, I'm not able to, manage my work or manage my home. And that has been only possible because I have such wonderful colleagues and bosses, who actually let me be and just ensure that I fly.
So we can take up any questions the participants may have. Please put them in the chat box. So I'll just ask the last question before we take up any questions from the participants. Suruchi, now what are the roadblocks you see ahead of this after the government has announced this policy? Any roadblocks that you see now?
See, there are many challenges. Like, for example, as I mentioned, the cost of electrolyzers are quite high, and we need, it requires significant amount of investment. Then also, you need, there are many regulatory hurdles, like the green hydrogen policy is actually the first formal document that has come up. There needs to be detailed policy which needs to actually take care of ground realities. Then also there are other technical issues like your storage, transportation, then hydrogen being flammable, highly flammable, lack of infrastructure. All these are pertinent problems which, people are researching and trying to come up. So these few are the roadblocks, but like I said, that, this hydrogen is going to be a game changer, because finally India is importing more than 4/5 of its oil and half of its natural gas requirement. We need cleaner sources of energy. So if these roadblocks can be tackled, then of course, this is going to be a game changer.
So you had also already answered a bit of that question on Paris Agreement, which was asked by a participant. Anything to add to that?
I think the most important element of, as I mentioned before, it's the limit, the global warming limit, which was set by the Paris Agreement, which is preferably to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And then there are, again, I have already covered that before. There are many obligations on the parties who have signed these agreements. They are actually called as conference of parties, who are globally review these policies and international treaties. So there are various obligations, but the primary and the main objective is to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and also to have these nationally determined contributions to be every 5 years, that all nations needs to, have some goals to limit their emission targets and reach their targets.
Manju ma'am, do we have any more questions from participants? I think we've tried to cover a lot of things. Lakshmi ma'am, everyone was also kind of very, very, appreciable of your presentation. And overall, I think if we can just say in the end, I think planning ahead Someone has just put it, how to mitigate the risk associated with green hydrogen, as hydrogen is highly flammable and explosive. Lakshmi ma'am, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have the answer, but I agree with you. Hydrogen, very light. That's the only positive factor about it. So it will disperse well, but it's got a very wide flammable limit. So it comes in your 2C classification. So I guess these are the challenges that we have to cross, and soon we will find ways to mitigate that. Right now, I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on hydrogen manufacturing to tell you that it cannot be. It is difficult, but we have been handling hydrogen. I mean, all your refineries have been handling hydrogen since a very long time. Now, the only problem is it has been handled in a very controlled environment. And if now, instead of handling it within the refinery, we are taking it out and giving it to, transporting it and having a charging point, how you will be maintaining safety is a prime concern. But I think we will evolve just like, it's not that petrol and gasoline, they're all flammable. We've handled those, we've handled CNG. So I think processes, procedures, roadmaps will be put in place to handle hydrogen as well.
Suruchi, any input on that?
No, I completely agree with ma'am. So also as Ministry of Road and Transport that I had presented in the notification, they had also come up with various amendments where they provided for technical specifications, and those also dealt with how to make hydrogen safe with respect to CNG vehicles, HCNG vehicles, which is hydrogen enriched CNG vehicles. So this is a burning problem, and everybody is coming up, with solution. Like the pilot program for the hydrogen cell vehicles on electric vehicles came up just this month. So every day there's a new thing which is coming up. In fact, that hydrogen EV vehicles came up, I think, last week. And the CNG vehicles also, hydrogen enriched CNG vehicles, there are also different parameters which have been set by the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. And they have set certain specifications and, technical specifications concerning the safety aspect.
So someone, I think, has asked some question, and in fact, there are also programs and courses in hydrogen which are being conducted. In case you want, you can write to BGCL. We can also help you in guiding about those courses. So basically, the effort was that, guiding the future leaders about what are the things that you have to plan ahead in future. After all, when Noah built the ark, it was not raining. So you have to plan in advance. So that is what we are trying to learn in this future leadership series. And also, I will just ask Manju ma'am to slightly, if she can share the aspect about the next series in this, which will be covering future currencies. So we'll have the next webinar in this future leadership series on cryptocurrency, fintech, and blockchain. We'll come with 3 eminent faculties, all ladies, to share their insights. So we're hearing a lot about cryptocurrency these days since the budget was presented. And today also there's the news. So Nirmala Sitharaman is presenting her views daily about something or the other, as so many clarifications are needed on this aspect also. So I would say just join us in all the 4 webinars, and I hope all this can help you plan ahead for the future. Ma'am, I don't think we have any more questions, and we're almost over with time also.
Yeah, ma'am, I think everything was explained so well. Not many questions have come up. But definitely, if people write to us, we will come to our speakers.
Yes.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Any closing remarks from you, Lakshmi ma'am?
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be in this seminar.
Oh, as Manju ma'am said, if we have any more clarifications that are requested, we'll come back to you. Thank you, Suruchi. Thank you so much, Lakshmi ma'am, for associating with BGCL. And we look forward to all the participants joining us in all 4 series. We'll see you on 8th of April at 5 p.m. for the second part on future currencies. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.